Hello, everybody. This is the Progress Report for the first Wednesday in April. April 6th, indeed. And that means I have the great pleasure of being joined by my good friend and esteemed legislator for many years, Lou D'Alessandro.
Thank you, Bob. Always good to be here.
Dean of the Senate, and he's getting more the dean every time he runs for re-election. And today, as I posted on the show, I hope some of you saw my post, we are very pleased to have with us not one but two important parts of the Democratic Party apparatus in New Hampshire. Number one, the man I like to call, my personal choice is for his name is Mr. Democrat, Raymond Buckley. Is a man I greatly admire for what he's done. And I have to say, Raymond, I don't think any Republican would dare admit this, but I bet a lot of them would like you to be on their side, not on our side. I truly believe that, because you have been awesome. You have been really awesome. And he was kind enough to bring in not only himself, but his executive director. I had to be reminded that Raymond doesn't do everything in the Democrat Party. He does need an executive director, and that is Troy
Price.
Troy Price, who's the executive director. So we have two prime people as we head into the coming up 2022 elections. We always say this election is the most important we've ever had. Well, these are really important elections. We're going to elect congressmen. We're going to elect a U.S. senator. I hope it'll be Maggie Hassan. We're going to elect all the members of the New Hampshire Senate and the New Hampshire House, 424. I mean, it's a huge thing. But we know that in New Hampshire we do elections well. Despite their claims to the contrary, there's no real issue about the elections in New Hampshire being valid and properly counted. And so it's really good to be joined by these two skilled and capable people. And so, Raymond, what would you like to chip in?
Well, first, thanks to both of you for having us on. It's exciting to be joined with Troy and letting the people of Manchester get to see one of our newest Queen Cityans. What's really exciting is to see the progress that we've been able to make since the 2020 election and really building the ground game and knowing what we're capable of doing for getting out the vote and the success that we've had since Troy's arrival with the special elections, with the city elections, not only here in Manchester, but in the other 12 cities that we've had elections in, and then the town elections that happened just in March. We met with great success in
I'd like you to talk about that. Yeah, I know you told us about that when you opened the first coordinated campaign office here in Manchester last Saturday. It was quite exciting, but you had some great news, and I want you to share that.
Well, there's across the country, there's a lot of anxiety. Traditionally, Democrats don't do well when we have an incumbent president in the non-presidential election year.
Yep.
And in 2014, as you both know, we did not suffer as much as the rest of the state. We really learned what we need to do, and that's build a strong ground game and really get our voters out. And that's why we were able to reelect Governor Hassan at the time, and Senator Shaheen, and Congresswoman Custer, and the Senate. We held our losses, the House, the Executive Council. So we used that as kind of a pattern, and then we've really doubled down on some of the lessons we learned after the 2020 election. And so with the special elections, we've had these state rep races. One was, in a pretty deep blue district over in Cheshire County, and we won so overwhelmingly, we actually did 7% better than Joe Biden did. It was just a huge victory. And to see poor Kelly Ayotte there, we were out there canvassing the weekend before, and Kelly Ayotte's, out there, rounding up the troops, trying to get the Republicans to turn out, and we were just knocking on doors. They were doing rallies for some reason. We won in the Bow Dunbarton special election. That's a very purple area. We sometimes would, sometimes and won convincingly there. But what was really exciting was the Bedford Victory. As we all know, Bedford has been a severe Republican stronghold for generations.
Yes, that's right.
And to have not one but two state representatives representing Bedford is just amazing.
It's absolutely amazing.
So that's the special and the city elections. They're only, of the 13 cities, there are only 2 Republican mayors in the state of New Hampshire. And with all of the noise that's being made around the country, being made here in New Hampshire, with about all the right wingers, with the Proud Boys and these anti-public school folks, about talking about racism and all that sort of stuff, that they were just being so loud and so off about. Not a single incumbent Democratic school board member lost in the city elections across the state, and we increased, like here in Manchester, when we picked up Peter Argyropoulos citywide, and others in some of the other wards. And we did that again in the town elections, where we increased our school board membership and increased those who will hold elections. So we think
not a single incumbent Democrat running for re-election to local school committees was defeated.
In the cities or towns.
In the cities or towns. And in the open seats, the results were equally good, right?
Yeah, we picked up Laconia. We have a school board seat now citywide in Laconia. Andrew Hosmer was reelected convincingly. That was one of the strongest district. So we're very confident with the team that Troy's put together. We've hired really some of the best folks to work with us on communications, on building the structure of it, and I think are going to. The biggest shock, I think, if you look at that poll last week with St. Anselm, it had numbers that had Chris Sununu against Tom Sherman, who had just announced days before. The fact that Chris Sununu, who just got reelected with nearly 70% of the vote, is at 51%.
Really?
51%.
Wow.
So that leaves so much room for whoever the Democratic nominee for governor is, so much room to grow once they get to be known. But with Sununu starting off at 51, that gives us a clear path for victory. And once again, Lou D'Alessandro, Bob Backus, and Ray Buckley will have defeated a Sununu again. This time, Troy will be our magic. But I don't know if Troy wants to talk a little bit about what we're building here. And
I would like to let Troy introduce himself a little bit.
I'm sorry.
Because you're familiar to, I think, our viewers, because you've been a big fixture and a big part of the Democratic world here for a long time, and Troy's somewhat new. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing here, what you're planning to do.
Well, so I come from Iowa. I've been here on the ground now for about 8 months. It's gone by incredibly fast, and it's been great to be here. I mean, the people here are amazing. The Democrats here are energized and fired up, and it's truly just wonderful to be around such a strong party that Chairman Buckley has built, and that you folks have built, and everyone has built here in New Hampshire, and it's just great to be a part of that. And before I came here, I grew up in a small town in Iowa, a small conservative town, but I got the political bug when Bill Clinton came through my town in 1992. Really got involved in politics when then an unknown state senator magically became governor. It seemed magically because we hadn't elected a Democrat in Iowa in 30 years to the governor's office, and that was Tom Vilsack. Now the Secretary of Agriculture.
And we remember him fondly. He ran a very distinguished campaign in the New Hampshire primary with his charming wife. They were a dynamite couple.
Yeah, very nice. Very
Well,
nice.
and as an 18-year-old, I went to intern in his office, and I was a bad penny and refused to leave, so I just stuck around. Got hired on there and ended up working for his successor. Worked on a couple presidential campaigns, ran a nonprofit in Iowa focused on protecting gay marriage in the state. Was state party chair during the 2020, in 2018 and part of 2020. And then worked for a labor union, and one day Ray Buckley called me and said, "Hey, would you have any interest in coming to New Hampshire?" And I don't think I hesitated a bit to say yes.
That's interesting. With all your Iowa roots, I guess you were both chairman and executive director of the Iowa Democratic Party.
That's right.
Just Ray had to say, "Come to New Hampshire," and that was it. I mean, what led you to leave? Did you want to have some white mountains and some ocean front? What really brought you to New Hampshire that made this state attractive to you? By the way, we're delighted you're here.
Well, thank you, and really everyone has been so generous and so welcoming to me here. It's just been a great experience, and But you know what brought me here was, I had a chance to work with Ray and many people from New Hampshire over the course of my time with the Iowa Democratic Party. And during that time, I saw that the New Hampshire Democratic Party was the strongest state party in the country. And
Really?
Yeah, without a doubt.
Take that, Mr. Chairman. Okay.
And, after I left the state party in Iowa and this opportunity presented itself, it really was a no-brainer for me to have the chance to come here to work with someone who has been, quite frankly, a mentor to me for a long time, and to get to work in a state with so many great people and so many great elected officials, activists, and volunteers, such great infrastructure. It was like I said, it was a no-brainer. So I'm thrilled to be here.
Well, very good.
Well, you're happy
Over
to
to you.
Right, well, happy to have you here. The midterms are tough. They're very tough.
We're hearing all doom and gloom
Yeah,
at the
we
national
are
level.
hearing-
Ray adverted
Right.
to that, but not so much here in New Hampshire.
Well, I think Ray's iteration of what's happened in New Hampshire is very positive in terms of where we stand at this point in time. The redistricting hurts us. I think it hurts us in the House, and it also hurts us
How
in the
does it
Senate.
always happen? And every 10 years, it's somehow the Republicans take over and
They
control the
have
redistricting.
control.
It seems like that's happened for about 30 years now.
But I think the Republicans hurt
Pisses me
themselves
off.
also, because Senator French, who isn't going to run again, he was sort of left out. His district was eliminated. Bob Guider's district was changed, and he's no longer the senator from that district because that's changed. So that's two Republicans that are out, so there'll be an opportunity in those areas. And Morse is not running again. Senator Morse is running for the U.S.
He's trying to
Senate,
be a Senate US
President.
senator, yeah.
So he's gone. Senator Reagan is not going to run again. That's another open seat. And you never know if there'll be others. But the redistricting hurt Kevin Kavanaugh. I think
Big
it really
time.
it destroyed his district. And
Yeah.
to put Goffstown and Raymond together, that's a grievous offense. That's calumny, because there's nothing in common between those two entities. Nothing at all. So when you look at the Senate, the Republicans, I think, put in place their plan to get at least 18 seats. They think they can get 18 seats. I think we can do better than that, obviously, but it's going to be a challenge. On the House side, the question that I think arises, and both of you have to deal with, I think we all have to deal with this. How strong will the libertarians or the
Free staters.
Free staters, how strong will they be? How deep is their hold? Now, right now, they do have a hold on the legislation and they have a hold on the policy. The question is, can that power be sustained? And in the executive council, that 4-1 majority, I've never heard of the councilors really designing their own districts. So that's a new one on me. And I served on the council for 6 years. But again, the redistricting is going to play a role. It's a challenge for all of us, but certainly for the party, it means the ground game has got to be better. Because we've got to get those peripheral votes. I looked at the numbers for the new district that I represent, and I look at the number of uncommitted voters, and they're growing quite dramatically, particularly in the transition areas, where there's a lot of movement in and out of those areas. For example, Ward 12, the number of unaligned voters in Ward 12 outnumbers both the Republicans and the Democrats. And when you look at the
So do you
district,
view that as the glass half full or the glass half empty?
well, I think it's a glass half full because you have an opportunity through the ground game to draw these people and to get them on board. And I couldn't agree more. I think the ground game is the name of the game. If you can get people out to vote, I think we have the strongest message. It's getting them out to vote.
Yeah.
Which is.
I think the chairman will agree with you wholeheartedly
No,
on
I think
that.
it's.
I
it's
think,
the key.
and Troy can talk about this, but that's what's exciting about the data information that we have, is that, in the old days, when I was running Lou's campaign and we were kind of, for executive council, we were just kind of flying blind because there was no party to really support us and provide us. So it would always be like, well, good luck. And that was the last time you heard from the party.
Yeah.
But the voter file that we have. So what we know about every one of these independents is not only if they've ever voted in a Democratic or a Republican primary and reverted back, so that gets tagged, but also as volunteers, as candidates,
Right.
talk to these people. What do they care about? So we have values, issues, and things that are important. So that's what makes it not as scary as it was 30, 40 years ago, in the sense that we have a good sense of who these independents are,
Yeah.
and what
What's on their
we
mind.
can communicate with them to make sure they get out in a year where independents traditionally, very few of them show up. You get the two extremes of the parties. You don't really get the independents. And so what we need to do is bring out the party regulars and the independents that will swing our way.
How do you get the independents out?
Well, it's door knocking. One of the things that we certainly saw in 2020 was because of COVID and we weren't able to hit the doors. I mean, I think that really
I think that hurt us
Sure,
a lot.
that hurt.
I
It hurt
absolutely
us a
agree.
lot.
I think Raymond would agree too.
We
Yeah.
lost your seat by one vote.
Yeah.
The guy running to replace you.
Yep, who didn't campaign, but still kind of pissed about that. Okay, but go ahead.
But the ground game is so critically important, and one of the things that I think is really exciting about this cycle is the Organized New Hampshire, the coordinated campaign, has started earlier than it ever has before.
Exactly.
Our
With a very strong turnout at the original
Yeah.
the
initial
meeting there
vote,
on
yeah.
Mammoth Road. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, and we're seeing that across the state, and there's so much interest and so much energy and so much passion within the party, and so having that ability to start the coordinated campaign as soon as we have is really it's really great, and we're able to channel that energy and start putting it into what we need, which is knocking doors, reaching out to voters. As the chairman said, with the tremendous data advantage that we have, targeting those voters and having those conversations. I mean, New Hampshire is a retail state, and it's a state that it's those one-on-one conversations at the doors that are going to make all the difference in the end of the day.
Yep.
I mean, one of the things that unique about these lists is when Peter got through the primary, Peter Argyropoulos, I said, hey, I don't see very many of your signs out. And he says, oh, yeah, and I said, okay. And so we ran off all the identified Greeks in Manchester off from our order file. Said, just call them or stop by the house, they'll put up a sign. I know, I've been through this. I know what they'll do. And so
Yeah, we have a few Greeks in Manchester.
and loyal Greeks,
Loyal.
which I guess we should take a second to express our sadness on Louis Quirk's passing.
Yes.
Oh,
the
wasn't
owner of
that
the
sad?
Athens.
Terrible.
That place was
Terrible.
such a Manchester institution. He finally gets to the end when he's going to have a nice payoff, and his restaurant's going to. Just really, really sad.
We
yeah.
even so Troy had heard of the Athens, had never been to the Athens. Of course, Senator Susie and I, one of our top 3 restaurants in the world.
Absolutely.
So we loved
Me
it. So
too.
we'll drag him, and we get there, and who's on the other side of the wall but Chris Spiro. And so he not only got the Athens restaurant experience, he got the Spiro family experience.
Been to many Lou D'Alessandro birthday parties at the
Yes.
Athens.
Many,
I had
many.
my own 50th birthday party there, and the 75th birthday. I mean, it's just really, really sad. But that's local stuff.
It's but it was just an example of what you're able to provide a candidate with that sort of support. It's like I know I can get you, a couple hundred sign locations very easily, very quickly.
Yeah.
Here's this list. Just give them a call or
Yeah.
stop by and put the sign up.
Yeah.
We could not do anything like that, just a few years ago.
Well, one thing that, because you mentioned it, Senator, one thing that I'm seeing out there, and I'm sure you're seeing it too, is the Free State movement out there is really a motivating factor for a lot of Democrats out there and a lot of
Hope
people
so.
in the middle.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, to oppose it.
Yeah, I mean, people are just frustrated, and
Yeah.
they're in a lot of cases aghast at what's happening in Concord and what's happening in some of these small towns where, it just goes against Granite values, right? Granite State values,
It
and
does.
so
It does.
so I think that we're going to see, I think Free Staters have certainly tried over these last couple of years to put their mark on the state, and I think they've gone too far, and I think you're gonna see that playing out a lot in this
Yeah.
election.
And the person to blame, a lot of people blame Craig Benson for welcoming the Free Stater Project originally back in 2000, 2002, 2003. But I really blame Kristen Noonan, because there was an option and an opportunity right after the 2020 election with strong numbers in both the Senate and the House of Democrats. He didn't have to cave to those 25 Free Staters that are in the legislature in the Republican caucus. You know, they went to them and said, listen, we're going to vote no on everything you want unless you give us everything we want. And he essentially gave the keys, and Senator D'Alessandro
Really?
can confirm, and then the Senate went along with it as well. And if Sununu had any political skills and any ability to understand the real purpose of government, he would have said, okay, you go to hell, and we're going to work with the Democrats and create a moderate package and really work for the people of New Hampshire. We're not giving the state over to these wackos that moved in the state just a few years ago.
Yep.
And you know, the lack of leadership, the lack of any ability to actually understand what government is supposed to be on Chris Sununu is just astounding.
Yeah. I hope you've both read. I'm sure Raymond has. I hope you have too, Troy. A libertarian walks into a bear.
I did.
What a great book that was.
It
How much
was.
fun. And what it told us about that whole project, you know, and I didn't realize this till that book came out. It started with the town of Grafton. There was a free town or municipality project before there was a free state project. That was the prototype.
And you saw
And they
what
got
happened
taken
in
over.
the school, in the town elections up in Grafton County this last time, where on town meeting day, only 30 people showed up.
They slashed the budget.
And they cut the school budget in half.
Yeah, just wonderful, just wonderful.
Reckless.
So, you know, we're talking about redistricting, and it's so important, and it happens every 10 years. And happily, again, this year, the side was in charge of the redistricting. But, you know, you've talked something about this, Raymond, but the big thing is about what's going to happen with the redistricting of the congressional districts between CD1 and CD2. And to the surprise of a lot of us, the governor actually did what he said he was going to do, or at least he's planning to do it, veto the redistricting provided by the commission headed by Barbara Griffith and Senator Gray. How do you think that's going, and where do you think we might end up? And can we make the first district, or both districts actually, more competitive than what the Republicans wanted to do?
Well, what looking at the maps, any traditional New Hampshire take on redistricting, you would have seen that our 5 executive council districts actually were within 1%. And so you actually didn't need to do any change to the executive council.
Right.
Instead, they now have the executive council district go from Concord to Hanover to Keene.
Right.
It's crazy.
It is
From
just
from
outrageous.
Maine to Vermont.
Yeah, and then it goes from Durham to Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
That's all along that side, and it's just reckless partisan behavior. What they've done with the congressional race, where all they had to do is move one small town, and in the split between the first and second district would have been nearly perfect. And if you look at, since we've had 2 congressional districts, the district lines, if you look back to the 30s, it's pretty much the same.
Yeah.
And what they did is and I kept thinking, how is it possible they could rig the election because of the Democratic spots and the Republican spots are all interspersed. Well, they could give a care, and they carved it right up the middle, so it looks like a giant finger to the people of New Hampshire, where you got the district they created has Newcastle and Portsmouth in the same district that Pittsburgh on the Canadian border is, and all the way to Charlestown on the Massachusetts and Vermont. So it goes up and around, and up the middle there's sticking up. And the thing is, even if that district passed, Chris Pappas is still going to beat Matt Mowers. So
especially with the recent news that he voted twice in the same election.
Is it going to be more Republican? Sure. But is it more Republican than the executive council district that Chris won 3 times? Nope. So, I mean, no matter what they do, he's going to get reelected. So why not just not mess with the people?
Yeah.
Let us have a decent district. Now, Governor Sununu did propose a district, still with significant change, moving Salem into the first district, and did some things like that. So it's not exactly the same, but at least it's something that's somewhat in the middle between doing the right thing and doing the really wrong thing. He kind of did the kind of middle-ish wrong bad thing.
Okay. All right, well, that's very good. Do we know how this thing is going to sugar out? How's it going to end up?
Well, it's going to happen quick, and that's why you saw the national organization take it to court.
Yeah.
Because, we're the last congressional district in the country.
Really?
Yeah, everyone else is done.
Everyone else is done. My God, what's the deadline for getting this done? We have a late primaries, I know, but
Filing begins the first Wednesday of June.
yeah.
So, somebody said, well, how's the polling? It's like, well, how the heck do you do the polling if you don't know what the district is? They go, oh, yeah. It's like, yeah, sure. Well, boy, Matt Mauer certainly
Well, he threw a monkey
got
wrench
exposed.
into it today.
Hey, is it
No
possible that he made an innocent mistake here?
No, he doesn't do anything innocently.
Okay.
If
Well,
you
explain it.
If you saw the interviews of his classmates from high school, remember, they organized together and created a PAC to raise money to elect Chris Pepper. His high school classmates, 12 years later, still disliked him so much. I've never heard of this in the country, that they created a PAC to raise money to send all across the country. They were sending money to Chris Pappas because they wanted to make sure that, because he was such a turd, when he was in high school. And look at, I obviously was not a majority kind of person in my high school, but I would bet my life there's not a single person that I went to high school with that would have donated to any opponent I've ever had in my life. I mean, that's just not something that happens. I mean, how bad do you have to be as a human being that these adults now should want to oh my God, that creep cannot go to Washington.
Yeah.
And he oozed of that. He was involved in Bridgegate, and he was able to kind of.
Oh, that's right. I'd forgotten about that. Yeah.
He was called
the
before
George
he got
Washington Bridge.
the
Yeah.
picture with his hand. He was able to get through that. He was the executive director in 2014, the Republican Party, when we won all those seats. It was great. He headed up Christie's campaign, and then immediately on a dime turned around and said, "Oh, Mr. Trump, I am your servant," and did his bidding in the State Department. And then he decided he's going to come back and move here. He rented an apartment, decided to run for Congress, and ran a pretty skeezy campaign last time. Got his butt kicked, and the fool's back for another time. This time there's a bunch of opponents he's got the primary to get through.
Gail Huff Brown is a
That's a tough
I mean,
field.
Carolyn Levitt, she's
Carolyn
got
Levitt,
a ton of money, a ton of support from Trumpers around the country. And that kid Tim Baxter, 25 years old, running for Congress. 24, sorry, both of them are 24.
Do you see any evidence, either of you, that the hold of Trump on the Republican Party is at all weakening?
No.
No, huh?
No.
I mean, you could see it after Kristen Nunu's comments over the weekend at the Gridiron Day,
Yeah.
and how quickly everyone came out and started attacking him for that.
Yeah.
You know, I think that, it's still the party of Trump. It's going to continue, Trump's not, they're going to have to pry the party out of his cold, dead hands.
Yeah.
And
What was Baldessaro's quote against Sununu? I don't know, it was something off color anyways, that
I didn't hear it.
big Trumper Al Baldessaro went brutal on Sununu.
Yeah. Well, God, you people, I hate to say it because this is all politics, but you are doing the Lord's work. I mean, I think the democracy in this country is at more risk than any time since 1861.
It's not hyperbole, ladies and
It's
gentlemen.
not hyperbole to say that. And there's a good many Republicans, not as many as I would like, but there's some like Christine Todd Whitman and others that are saying, I don't agree with the Democrats on their positions, but you got to vote for Democrats.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's the only way we can ensure that we have a functioning democracy going forward. I mean, I don't want to.
Well, I think insanity has become pervasive in this country.
Yeah.
Look at what's happened in Oklahoma just today. And in Texas, the governor of Texas is going to build his own wall to keep people out. And I think that sentiment has become the mode of operation for the Republican Party, and that's disheartening. As a person who taught most of my life, taught at the high school and the college level, and talked about democracy and about the, we have some idiosyncrasies in democracy. There's no question about that. But indeed, what's happened today, in today's world, I think we're seeing the demise of the democratic system, which is
And not
very
just in this
disheartening.
country, but
Oh,
around
all
the
over,
world.
yeah.
Around
And
the
I think
world.
when you look at what's happening in the Ukraine, I mean, use that obviously as an example, but indeed in our country, where the polarization is so severe on both sides. You got the progressives who are just way out there, and you got the conservatives who are further out there. I've always been in the middle, and Buckley will attest to that because there were times he didn't like that. But I've always been in the
Liberal
middle
over here. He was once called that, you know.
And I think my policies have been consistent. I've been in the business for 50 years, and I've seen the degradation of the system.
Yeah.
And it's terrifying to me to witness this, and I witness it on the Senate floor, and I witness it in the activity of the House, and that's just here in New Hampshire. But
Compared to what it was like in
yeah.
the 70s and how people worked together, there was disputes,
Right.
but it wasn't like this.
Yeah.
It wasn't personal.
It's all about grievance and
it is.
the-
It is.
and
Well, the
cultural,
the
you know.
caliber of people who were in the Republican
Yeah.
Party.
And the
in
Democrat
the 70s, and the Democratic
Yeah.
Party in the 70s. Well,
I mean, I just think
Senator
it's
McIntyre.
stunning,
True, yeah.
stunning that
Just
the Republicans in 2020 did not even offer a party platform.
Yeah.
No party platform at all. We've all had kind of fun poking, oh, those platforms don't amount to much, but they told you what the party stood for. In 2020, they had no party platform.
In New Hampshire, seriously.
Oh,
They
really?
didn't pass it, even though state law requires us to pass a platform. And so
never did.
when I called them out publicly, they just said the convention reaffirms the platform that was passed in 2018.
I think it's the movement away from the democratic
Yeah.
process, and I think, as I say, that's disheartening as a person who's been involved
Yeah.
for a long period of time and seen some great people. I was having lunch today with somebody. We were talking about Hugh Gallen, and what
Hugh
a
Gallen?
yeah, what a great
Remember
guy
him?
Governor
Was a
Gallen
great guy.
was, and a great friend of mine, just a terrific guy, and the trials and tribulations that Governor Gallen had.
Yeah, he did.
What Hugh Gallen said to me, and it's something I've tried to do, but he was so much stronger. I said something about at one point. Does the editorials or the news that they create, in the Union Leader ever affect you, Governor? And he says, I don't read the paper. He says, why would I read that when I know it's not true? And there's nothing I'm going to learn from that newspaper.
Well-
And I was like, that is exactly, why put yourself out there to just read, editorial after editorial,
Yeah.
which
Which
Lou
could be-
certainly was
I've had my
a
share.
recipient
I've
You
had my
of.
you got your share of
I've
those,
had
and
my
you got
share
your
of
brick
those
bats.
editorials, right.
It used to be, if you didn't get
And
attacked by the
today,
Union
if you
leader,
decide you want to read the Union Leader, there's a lot less of it than there used to be.
If you were a Democrat with any future and you didn't get attacked by the Union leader, you were dead. I was so excited. I was in the House for a week, and I got my first editorial. Oh, thank you.
When I returned to New Hampshire from being overseas for a couple of years, all I did was read the Union Leader. Whoever they were for, I was against. That was made it very easy.
When Lou was running for the council in '88, and he and I went to the editorial board meeting. Remember that?
Yes.
And Jim Finnegan. So we're sitting in this conference room with no
Conference room, oh,
windows.
yeah.
He comes in with a stack of files. I don't know what, 2-3 feet tall,
Right.
of all loose clippings and everything, and plops it on the table.
Yeah, the anti. Well, then before he
Yeah.
passed away, he told me I was becoming too conservative for him. Talk about wow, and his daughter became a good friend. Actually, she taught at Bow
Yeah.
High School and taught my grandchildren.
Yeah.
But the rag was really something, and it played a very prominent role in those days. It doesn't play that same
Not
role
nearly
anymore.
like it
Not
used to.
nearly like it
Nothing
used
like,
to.
yeah, that's.
It doesn't even impact city elections
No,
anymore.
I don't
really,
think it
it's
has-
quite amazing.
It has
Yeah.
any juice.
Technology
But-
changed it all around.
Yeah. Well, I think
Was-
the other thing that we've seen, though, as Ray points out, is the sophistication in the process. Now we have Facebook, we have Twitter, we have Instagram, we have this, we have that. all the social media has become very, very important in an election campaign. The fact that you can drill down to a person how they voted, when they voted, so that's information that was never available when I first got into the business here. In order to register to vote in many of the towns in the state of New Hampshire, you had to have your birth certificate or your passport, or you couldn't register to vote.
Wow.
And most of the registrars were in their homes, so you had to visit their home at the appropriate time, and that was like from 10 in the morning until, say, 4 in the afternoon. Well, you had to work usually, and
They
you
were
went to work
especially
before 10.
elderly women.
So
They're very controlling on that list.
those were very, very difficult times and very difficult
Yeah.
voter restrictions. Now, we've done away with that. Things have gotten a little better here, but we're playing with the voting situation now. And the affidavits are becoming a problem, and the fact that, if you don't come back, they can't open the ballot. If you can't open the ballot, you can't count the ballot. If you don't show up, they discard the ballot after 10 days. I mean, this is all contrary to what I taught as a teacher. The idea of making it easy enough so that everybody could register, so that everybody could
Yeah.
participate in the process.
Yeah.
But
And
look at
that
the
was
dozens
goal.
of elections after every that are in recount because they're so
Yep.
close.
Yep.
And now we're going to have thousands of ballots that will be set aside.
Sure, not counted.
We, the U.S. Senate seat in 2016 was 1,017 votes.
That's right.
Probably, I think 80,000, 90,000 people did same-day voter registration in 2016.
Yep.
You don't tell me that 1,000 of them would have been set aside, so we wouldn't have known who the victor was
Is that-
for
is
10
that-
days.
Yeah.
Is that actually going to happen? Is that going to be
It passed the Senate.
It passed the Senate.
And the House.
Yeah.
But imagine the presidential primary. So the world's press is here. We got open primary both on Democratic and Republican side. Neither one can we declare a victor of the New Hampshire primary because it's within the margin because it was, I think, 75,000 people did same-day voter registration in 2020 in the Democratic primary. That's when it was just Trump running on the Republican side, so there was no need. So on both sides, if you just doubled that, 150,000 same-day registrants, and you know how close some of these presidential primary results are, we're not going to be able to say till after 10 days who won the New Hampshire presidential primary.
Oh, that's awful. That's
So
absolutely
Republicans can rig the election to try to get new registrants.
I never thought we'd go with these provisional ballots in New Hampshire.
Well,
And apparently we're on the
crazy.
cusp of doing it.
We are on the cusp of doing it.
Just
as I
awful.
said,
Just
Outrageous.
awful.
it passed the Senate
Yeah.
last Thursday.
Now, is the Secretary of State weighed in on this?
Well, we've had a transition in the Secretary of State's
We have.
office. Bill Gardner has
He's
retired.
gone. You have
And
Dave.
Dave Scanlon is now the Secretary.
Has he testified on this?
I believe he has. I think he shows some concern.
I think he
Well,
should.
I think even Sununu shows some concern
Yes,
over this.
today he
Yeah.
said
He announced it today, so I think it's a problem that's been recognized by
Yeah.
everybody involved in the
But
process.
after the election, both Bob and Lou know this. You have until Friday at 5 o'clock to file for a recount, and if it's outside of a certain margin, you have to pay for it.
That's right.
So if Friday at 4 o'clock, you've got 4,000 unopened ballots in your
You just
district.
don't know if they're gonna
and,
count or not.
You don't know if they're going to be counted or not,
Yep.
and you're like, well, what kind of money do I have? You call your
Do they
spouse
pay
saying,
for it?
hey, we might have to pony up, a couple $1,000 to find out if I won the state Senate seat. It is a
It's
mess.
horrible. It's horrible. It's horrible.
Well, it's very highly problematic,
Yeah.
and it's a shame that it's come down to this.
It certainly is. It
But,
certainly is.
Look at election reform has been an integral part of the process. Between vaccine and elections, that's been the majority of bills in the House for sure,
Really?
and in the Senate. Yeah, there were 50 bills filed that pertained in some way to vaccination.
Like, in opposition.
Yes,
Discouraging.
discouraging.
Yeah,
vaccination.
it is the height of recklessness
Yeah.
in both situations,
It
in trying
is.
to rig elections and trying to essentially expose people to potential death.
Hey,
And the only voter fraud we know of is Matt Mowers.
Right.
it's interesting how the few examples of voter fraud, so many of them are actually Republicans. By the way, everybody, we do welcome calls here, 603-640-3091, if you'd like to join us in this, I think, very interesting discussion. And, we're rolling right along. So how are you two going to save us from all these dangers that we see
Right.
lurking out there.
Well-
I mean, you got a great kickoff with your coordinated campaign, I have to say. It was good. But,
You know,
where do we go?
To Troy, it was years ago, but 30 years ago when I was executive director, it was me and one other person, a young woman, and the staff. That was the whole staff.
Yeah.
Right now, we have a staff of 14, a core staff, and there's another 7 that work organizing the House races, the Senate races, and I'm trying to turn this phone off. Can you guys hear that?
No, it's okay.
Good. My sister's ringing into my hearing aid. They're working on the executive council races as well. And we've got another 25, 26 on the coordinated campaign. But at this time, 30 years ago, it was me and one woman. And so you look at how
And
this
how does that
party has
compare with
progressed.
the Republicans got going for coming up to this 2022 election?
Well, I hate to be mean,
I know you do. You're the soul of gentleness.
It's not only that they have few staff, it's who they hire is astonishing. It's I'm just like, but what it is that Sununu is running the party the way the old ways were, and the Democratic Party pre-Shaheen. Because remember the line, that Billy Shaheen said that, Jeannie and I promise that the Democratic Party is going to be stronger the day she leaves as governor than when she got elected. And she changed the entire party. And so we are whether we have the governor's office or not, we have a strong, constant party. When Governor Gallen was governor, he shut down the office, recreated it in his own way, and it was simply just operated for his elections. And that's the way the Republican Party still operates. So right now, the Sununu thing is just about his, caretaking for his reelection, and really nothing else. And so that you can hire the leftovers, to be generous. There they are. I mean, I know people don't think that I hesitate for responding to tweets, but I actually do, because I feel sorry for them. It's like, nobody needs to be called being stupid every day, but it is just profound that the lack of just basic education level, what they do and understand. So that's why this real purple state, you take Chris Sununu out of the picture, just he and his father's name. If obviously he wouldn't have been elected in 2016 if his name was Chris Johnson. But anyway, he's the only one that's won a major office since 2016 or since 2014.
Yeah.
We've won every congressional, U.S. Senate, governor, the presidential, and he's not going to be there, hopefully, after November. And once he's gone, what is left of the shambles?
They haven't got a.
There's no
they
there.
haven't, they haven't got a bench or a minor league
No.
franchise to. Yeah.
No, and the people that are there, they call their bench.
Yeah.
That's why the Free Staters and Libertarians are rising
Yeah.
to control the party, because there's just nothing there.
Yeah. So Troy, weigh in on this. You're the guy who's going to make all these things work.
Tell us about
Right.
Victoria Sullivan.
Tell us about Victoria Sullivan. Can we get her run again?
Well, hopefully that's done after this last election. No, just to piggyback off of what the chairman said is, the staff that we have at the NHDP is really, I would say, the best in the country. I mean, our staff is working hard every
Do
day.
people come here from all over to work for the NHDP?
Yeah, there's a lot of folks who are local, but a lot
Like
of
you,
folks,
for example?
yeah, and a lot of folks who come from out of state just because it's such a great place to work and there's so much opportunity here. That it's because of the great staff and the great talent that we have on board. That's why we're going to be successful this fall. We have amazing candidates, we have amazing volunteers, we have amazing activists, and we have amazing staff that's going to be able to channel all that energy and carry us through to Election Day.
How about
George,
resource?
talk a little
How
bit
about well, go ahead.
Talk a little bit about, because there was a day where the party was the only game in town. If you weren't involved in the Democratic Party, there was no other outlet to organize and build. But there are a number of citizen-led progressive democratic organizations
Yep.
that want to just build the party.
Yep.
You know, and Troy's been working with a number of them, and
Really?
they're
That's
in
good.
hundreds. So they may not have, you know, the name Democratic Party, but there are activists across the state are every day involved in communicating with voters, going door to door, doing that sort of stuff, and Troy's really been able to get to know a lot of them.
Okay.
And I think that's a fascinating change that happened after the 2016 election. There's so
Okay.
many citizens wanting to get involved and empowered, and they really make a difference.
Weigh in on that, Troy. That's really interesting.
Well, I've always thought and always said that the Democratic Party doesn't have the monopoly on good organizing. And, you know, there's some great organizations that's, like the chairman said, started after 2017, like the Kent Street Coalition, for example,
Wonderful
up in
group.
Concord.
Wonderful group.
And
Love
they've
them.
done a great job bringing folks together and, you know, getting folks activated, really highlighting issues and getting folks organized around issues as well as candidates. There's a group of local town chairs. It's called the Local Leadership Network. And they're really working together to like come up with new and innovative ways to organize. We have some amazing town chairs and county chairs.
You do?
For example, up in Grafton County, they're doing a really deep canvassing program right now. They get 20 volunteers out on the doors every weekend, just out having conversations about issues. And, you know, it's those sorts of activities that feeds into a successful election. You know, a lot of folks always try to look to the party to be the end-all be-all of everything, and it's not, and it never can be and never will be.
Yeah.
But it really is. But so having those entities out there, those county parties, those town committees, city committees, all working together, as well as those outside groups, all working together, it really helps. It all works towards the common goal. And, you know, the job of the party is to make sure we're all rowing in the same direction.
Yeah.
And that can, you know, it's a Democratic Party. So that can be a little bit challenging at times. But, you know, everyone all has the same goal in mind.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think we're going to see that play out on Election Day.
So you kicked off your coordinated campaign last Saturday at a great event here in Manchester. The chairman was very good at that event. What is the major thing you're going to be doing to help the candidates going forward? I mean, what is the major thing you do? I know you do a lot, but just talk about what you're going to be doing to help our candidates be successful.
Well, so we're going to be focused on really driving the turnout. I mean, this is a turnout election. And so
Right.
really be focused on driving the turnout. So that's what the coordinated campaign as well as the operations that we're working on at the core staff at the NHDP is really about, you know, building up our town committees so that they can energize folks in their communities and get folks out, as well as the coordinate's going to be focused on trying to talk to our base voters as well as those folks in the middle that we can get out, that we know are leaning our way, may need a little conversation, a little chat, but really make sure that we're building that base support. In addition to that, you know, our the folks over at the DVCC, Democratic Victory Campaign Committee, that's the House Caucus Committee, the Senate Caucus, the Executive Council Caucus, are all working right now on recruitment and trying to make sure that we have top quality candidates all across the state who are ready to win these seats. And providing that support, and we're working with them to make sure that we can do that. And then, you know, helping to provide support as well as in the data front that Chairman mentioned. And our, you know, the New Hampshire voter file is one of the richest voter files in the country. And that is, like I said, an invaluable tool that we are able to help support these folks with.
That's really great.
And then in addition to that, too, one of the things we're really focused on, you're talking about election protection and making sure that our elections are free and fair to everyone, is, you know, we have a really great voter protection team, and it's going to be growing and expanding so that, you know, we saw this effort in these on town meeting day, where I believe it was 12 cities across the state, or 12 towns across the state, had warrant articles to ban voting machines and go to
Right,
just
just
hand
paper ballots.
Oh, yeah.
just
Oh my
paper
God.
ballots.
What a
and it
great
all had to
idea.
be hand-
Like hand count will be really accurate, right?
Yes. And so they were all defeated, and our voter protection team and our ground game.
And
all
there was
worked
an effort
together.
to pass them. They spent
Yeah.
a lot of money trying to
Yeah.
past that.
I mean, that was just bonkers, but I had not heard that result. It's a stunning
really
result.
crazy.
All defeated,
Really
and I
good.
want to say they were all defeated by wide margins. It wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't close.
Yeah, well, good for you. Good for you.
I think that there's a lot of stuff that when we look back on 2020, what we could have done better. And I think it's something that it's not rocket science, but I think it's going to make a big difference. Is that when we're talking to the candidates or potential candidates for the state senate or for the House, we're going to give them a true assessment of what their district is. Because if you're running for state rep in a certain ward in Portsmouth, pretty much just putting your name on the ballot,
That'll do it.
is,
That'll
gets
do
you
it.
elected.
That'll do it, yeah.
But if you put your name on the ballot in Bedford, you need to raise a good amount of money and run a real robust campaign.
Yes, you do.
And people haven't really told the difference. Everyone was kind of, it was like, everyone does do the same thing, where it's like, no, you're in this kind of a district. This is what you need to do to win. You're in this kind of district. This is what you need to do to win. So that people understand the challenge before them and not to compare themselves. Somebody from Manchester Ward 8 should not compare themselves to a candidate for state rep in Manchester, Ward 5. It's even though it's still Manchester wards, but the demographics are completely
Very
different.
different.
And so it's
Exactly, yeah.
important for them to understand how hard you have to win. You can win,
Yeah.
because we can win anywhere, but you have to work
Yeah.
this hard for this district, this hard for this district. And I think that's going to have a real great benefit, because I think people are going to finally get it.
Yeah.
That they're just not just because their friend or their cousin or second cousin that got elected, in some deep Democratic area, that all they have to do is put the name on the ballot and they get elected, and then they get angry that they didn't get elected. And it's like, well, what did you do?
Yeah.
Did you even raise $1? Oh, well, no. My cousin, over in Durham didn't. Why do I have to?
Well, that's Durham for you. Speaking of resources, how do you help out on that front? I know you just don't hand over money to candidates. You expect them to raise money, and I experienced that. And Senator Lou has no problem with that. But how about helping candidates and having maybe good people for the job, but they don't.
We're really proud that both the House caucus, the DVCC, and the Senate caucus, they've raised twice as much as they've ever raised before already. So the New Hampshire donors are there, and they're prepared. They see what's happening at the State House, and they want to get back to normalcy.
They want to change it. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we're very excited by that. So, you work, if you're a candidate and you're in a district that needs help, obviously provide help to campaigns that don't need help. And if you're doing what needs to be done to win, those caucuses are there to push you
Yeah.
over the top. They can't make you a good candidate. What they can do is push you over the top.
Yeah. Okay. Well, real good. So you guys fired up and ready to go? You've been there a long time, Raymond, but you seem to be ebullient and charged up as always.
Well, I was just thinking, Lou's birthday's coming up, and
Oh yeah,
and
he gets one every year, doesn't he?
Every year.
it's shocking how that happens.
It is.
But he didn't, when he mentioned the 50 years, and my math was quick, and he. Your first election to the legislature was exactly 50 years ago.
Yes, it was.
50 years ago?
1972.
No kidding.
It was in Ward
That's
10.
correct. Ward 10. in
God, what a
Manchester.
war horse you
332
are.
St. James Ave, right?
Right, 332 St. James.
Yeah.
I am a war horse. There's
You
no
are.
question about it.
You've done
Yeah.
so much good for
Well,
so many people for so many years.
We just,
And I don't agree with you on everything, as you know. But I do admire all that you've accomplished.
You can't agree with everybody on everything.
That's right, that's
makes it-
right.
That
Yeah.
makes it a bad situation. There's got to be a little bit
Yeah.
of discussion and debate.
Yeah.
As Marge Williamson, my teacher at the University of New Hampshire, in that course, Discussion and Debate, said to me, Lou, you got to be ready. So
Yeah.
you're ready.
Be prepared, be prepared.
Be prepared.
So
And,
I don't know if you know this, but Lou actually met JFK
Really?
when he was running for president.
Yes,
Wow.
I did. It was a wonderful experience and one I will never forget. I met him at the University of New Hampshire, and it's a unique story. I wrote about it in my book very quickly, only for a few minutes left. I'm at New Hampshire Hall, the president, he's running for president. He's a senator at the time. He's speaking at New Hampshire Hall. Nobody can get in. The place is jammed. I mean, the guy was as attractive could be. I think every woman in America was at the door trying to get in.
Apparently true.
So wait a minute, Bacchus. Now, wait a minute. Let me as well throw the first
stepped on your
note.
story. I apologize. I really apologize.
So here I am at the front. I can't get in. Bacchus is a wise guy. You got to watch it.
I apologize. I really
So I can't get in, and I go around to the back of the building, and I push up a window, and I jump up on a windowsill. And I
nobody
jump,
tells Lou no. He's gonna do what Lou's gonna do.
And I jump down, and I land in this position, and I look up, and there's a hand, and the hand is out there, and it says, "Hi, I'm John Kennedy." I said, "Hi, I'm Lou D'Alessandro." That's how I met John F. Kennedy. And I'll tell you, everything they said about him is true. He had the tweedy jacket on. His hair was a bit askew, but perfect. Mm-hmm. He had a great suntan, great smile, and can you imagine that kind of reaction? Now, I said, in today's world, I would be dead.
Yeah.
Right? The Secret Service would have shot me about 19 times. But I got to meet the next president of the United States. I got to meet him and shake his hand and talk to him.
So, Bob, share your college story when you met FDR.
I can't quite do that, Raymond, but I was tempted to tell my story about meeting Dwight David Eisenhower in the White House and also Tricky Dick Nixon on the steps of the Capitol when I was a mere youth.
Well, I think great experiences, and only can
was
happen.
really wonderful. It was
Only
just
can happen
terrific.
in New Hampshire.
Aren't you in that photo at the New Hampshire Institute of Politics?
I am.
With Rockefeller.
I was a Republican.
Yeah.
Can you believe that?
Yeah,
I was,
I was too.
campaigning for
Yeah,
Nelson
yeah,
Rockefeller with the idea that he was a liberal. My God. How benighted was that?
Oh, God.
Oh, great stuff. When you go over to the Institute of Politics, look for me. I'll point at myself.
I will. Great experience. And I've written a book, and in the book we talk about that Kennedy situation.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, it really changed my life in this concept that I wanted to do something. Mm-hmm. You know, I really wanted to do something. And when he
Was that when you changed to be a Democrat?
No.
It was quite a while after that, wasn't it?
That
It was
was
1984. The
only
only Democrat in America, only Republican in America that became a Democrat in 1984. Lou D'Alessandro.
Actually, there was a great cartoon in the Union Leader that showed me jumping off of the Titanic. So there you have it, another great remembrance. Of. I've got those cartoons on the wall in my office at the State House. But hey, what an experience! I'll tell you what an experience. And meeting presidents and Buckley, he has entree into the White House and so forth and so on. I get in once in a while. And Annie Tomasini, who manages the Oval Office now, is a friend of mine. I've known her for a long time, and so forth and so on. But only in New Hampshire. I must say that only in New Hampshire.
You'll be proud to know that I talked to the White House on Friday, and they're going to start opening up the White House for events.
Yes.
And I've already seen the list, and according to Troy, you're right there. So
He should be. He was an early endorser of Joe Biden right here in the New Hampshire primary, and glad he did that too, because I think Joe Biden is getting a bad rap for things.
And he's doing an outstanding job.
Which I think he's doing an outstanding job.
Courageous, outstanding job.
I think we should not shy away from saying that.
No, not at all.
Really
not at
true.
all. Listen, here's a guy who's holding the free world together.
Yeah.
And that's pretty damn
it just
tough.
shows you how low we've gone.
Absolutely.
That when you've got somebody who is carrying himself with pride and honor, who is taking the hits but doing the right thing in each and every time, and instead it's just rocks.
Yeah.
Well, no question, he's doing the right thing.
Guys, this hour's flown
Yeah,
by.
the
It's always
flow.
great
Oh,
fun to have Lou
All right.
here.
Great to
I'm
see
so
everybody.
pleased you could join us,
Thanks for
Troy.
having me.
Yeah, thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman,
Thank
it's
you.
always...
Troy will come back anytime you want.
I'll keep that in mind. We may want to- It's wonderful, the two of you.
He's used to
and
me signing him up for
I-
stuff.
I appreciate all you're doing to help defend our democracy in this country, which I think is under great threat. And so we'll be back, not you, but me and Mike Farley will be back next week with another edition of the Progress Report. And I don't know what we got coming up, but we'll post it and be there. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining.
Thank you.